Today, we'll be looking at a scope statement. This is one of the first documents created once a project moves into the planning phase, so it's quite important to get it right. At the end of this video, you'll be able to describe what a scope statement is used for, list the 6 elements of a scope statement, and explain what each of those 6 elements would typically include. So what is a scope statement and what is its purpose? It's a key document which takes the high-level scope items we've looked at previously and develops them with more detail. It sets the direction for the whole rest of the project as well. You'll notice just how often we come back to the scope statement throughout the course. It combines the agreed requirements for the project, which could have come from numerous stakeholders. This is why it is very common for a project manager to have to spend some time collecting those stakeholder requirements, if they haven't already done so during the feasibility stage. It also helps a project to succeed. Research shows that a poorly defined scope or mission is the most frequent barrier to project success. It's also sometimes known as a scope of works or a statement of works. These are terms more often used in the construction industry. Moving on to the 6 elements. These are the objective, deliverables, milestones, technical requirements, limits and exclusions, and client reviews. Some of these will be easy because they were already defined during the feasibility stage and in the project charter. Let's look at each in turn and do a worked example as we move through them. Firstly, the objective. This is a short written section which brings together the intended outcome and output, and sometimes could include the success criteria as well. The objective brings together answers to 3 big questions: the what, the when, and the how big, and it also commonly answers the why. So let's pretend we are Spectra, the villainous organisation in the Bond movies. If we looked at Operation Grand Slam from the Goldfinger movie, our objective could be to destroy a minimum of 90% of the American gold supply within the next 12 months in order to increase the value of Goldfinger's personal gold stash. Note that it has the what, the when, the how big, and also the why. Then we move into the second element, which is the deliverables. We have discussed these before, but let's refresh. These are the formal components of the final output that must be produced. If something is a formal deliverable, it's pretty much non-negotiable. The deliverables for our example could include the air raid spraying nerve gas over Fort Knox, detonation of the nuclear weapon inside the gold vault, documented evidence of the destroyed gold, inspection and testing reports, and a valuation certificate for the new value of the bad guy's gold stash. Before we move on, let's critically review those deliverables and see if they could be improved. There are 2 key items I'd always suggest: that a deliverable is made measurable somehow and that it should be quantified as much as possible. So what about the first deliverable, air raid spraying nerve gas? Do you think that is measurable and quantified? What if the project delivered one tiny little drone with a few drops of gas? Does that meet the deliverable? Technically, yes, but I don't think it was what Goldfinger wanted. Instead, the deliverable could become 5 aircraft delivering nerve gas capable of knocking out the 200 Fort Knox personnel. It's always a good idea to check your deliverables once you have come up with them to see if they can be written in a more certain or precise way. The third element are the milestones. Let's get straight into the example. The Operation Grand Slam could have 9 milestones, including the start and the finish, and then we spread some key milestones out, such as the aircraft and pilots confirmed halfway through or the gas purchase made. Look at the final worked example in Canvas for the rest. Out of all of the 6 elements, this is the one that is sometimes not put into a scope statement. Instead, you have to look at other project documents. So out in industry, don't be surprised if you see a scope statement without the milestones listed. For this course though, you should always include them. The fourth element are the technical requirements. Some might already be listed in the project charter in the high-level requirements, or there might have been some early design work done which might list some as well. Whatever the source, be it the charter, design work, or the expertise of the team members, now is the time to put together a full list. These would include anything mandated by law, anything the client or key stakeholders insist on, and hopefully best practice standards as well. These are so varied by industry and region that it is impossible to give a definitive list here. For Operation Grand Slam, this could include international or US standards for the industrial laser, aviation standards, nuclear standards, and even a best practice handbook for evil villains. The fifth element are the limits and exclusions. This is a really important section and is unfortunately often overlooked. This is where you clearly define things that are out of scope and where you place any limitations around in-scope items. Even if things seem obvious, it is good practice to list them here. This just avoids any doubt and potential confusion later on, which is a common occurrence, and it's always better to clarify things early on in the project. For Operation Grand Slam, some exclusions could be around the sale of the evil guy's gold, security work to stop James Bond, or any ongoing maintenance. Limitations are a bit trickier. They are things you will provide, but only to an agreed level. So a nuclear weapon, yes, but up to a maximum size and only from other evil villains. Or the air raid, yes, but only a weekday, daytime one. Think of them like a yes, but. The last item, so the sixth element, is about reviews with the customer or client. This is about ensuring that the project team, including the client and sponsor, all understand and agree about expectations. It is a formal approval step to check that the sponsor is getting what they desire from the deliverables. It also checks that the project definition includes key accomplishments, budgets, timing, and performance requirements. It could sometimes also cover any future client reviews at a high level to ensure that those review points are kept. For example, there might be some review and approval steps at each of the key milestones. For our Operation Grand Slam, a review and approval could be required from three key people, Spectra's number 1 and number 2, as well as Goldfinger himself. There will also be formal review and approval steps at milestones 2, 5, 7, and 9 before those milestones are agreed as having been met. Time for some wrap-up review questions. So question 1, explain in your own words the difference between a project charter and a scope statement. Question 2, list the 6 elements of a scope statement. And question 3, explain what the elements of limits and exclusions is all about. Why is it there? What's the danger of not having it? Make sure to write out some notes for those review questions and have a look at the finished worked example in Canvas before you move on to the next video.